Welcome to Mindless Entertainment. My name is Jesse Milestone, and today we're going to talk about Jordan Peterson. This is a Patreon suggestion from one of my amazing patrons, Becky Embers, a delightful human being who also writes smut on the internet. It's the thing she does. So go to BeckyEmbers.com. Make sure you check that out. She also has a YouTube channel if you want to hear her read some of her stories out loud. That's also Becky Embers. So check her out. She's great. Now, we're going to get to certain points that I know are near and dear to Becky. But first off, just some things in case you're not super familiar with Jordan Peterson. Just a little bit of background on him. First off, if you haven't heard him speak, if you haven't noticed this before, he kind of sounds like Kermit the Frog. Which I have to say, it's not his fault. I'm not holding it against him or anything, but every now and then it's a little hard to take him seriously when I think of Kermit saying it. So, sorry, Jordan. That happens. Anyway, he's a fascinating person to hear talk because he has some good ideas. I mean, he's a very intelligent human being. He spent a long time thinking about and researching things. He's a psychologist. So I don't write off the things he says immediately just because I disagree with them. I give them a good ponderance. But the thing I found, and this is why I titled the video what I did, right? I found pointedly that Jordan Peterson lacks, and I mulled this over as to what it was too. I threw some ideas around of what is it that Jordan Peterson lacks, because when he talks, there's something just missing from the heart of his argument, and I thought maybe heart, but no, clearly he's coming at this from a feeling place as well as a thinking place. I think that sometimes he thinks he's overriding the heart with the head when he's actually really coming at it from the heart more than he realizes. Now, so I thought maybe it's compassion that he lacks, but I've actually heard him say some things that show that, compassion's a very, very important thing to him. He's even said some things that are very sensitive, because, and we'll get to that because it's part of his beliefs in the nature of truth, because he really believes in not harming people, which is interesting when we get to another piece that he talks about too. There are things about his ideology I find highly contradictory. So I thought that, and then I thought maybe it's empathy, but then again, no, back to the compassion thing, he has that, but it's kind of that, and what I really landed on is Jordan Peterson has an inability to step outside of his own experience, to step outside of his own worldview. And as much as he's willing to engage and have dialogues with people, more so than a lot of the other think tanks of his, that's not the right word, more than the thinkers of his type, this sort of, quote, intellectual dark web, these people who are having these freedom of speech-based conversations, which I love and appreciate, more so than some of the other ones. I find him not capable of even processing what a dissenter says a lot of the times, in a way that, I don't know, it's almost like he doesn't hear them, but just kind of says what he continues speaking his narrative. And you see this really, really clearly in his discussion with Sam Harris about the nature of truth. And that's an important thing you need to know about him as we continue this discussion. Jordan Peterson is a very interesting concept of truth that he applies to all of his discussion and thought. And it's based in, it's a value-based truth system. And he draws some of this from Nietzsche, and if you're not familiar with Nietzsche, an existentialist philosopher, definitely skirting the edge of nihilism a lot of the time. Nothing Nietzsche says should probably really ever be used in your daily life to as a code for how to interact with people in the world. And that's a general thing about existentialism and philosophy in general. It's all well and good. It's all great and fine to talk about it and debate about it and think about the nature of truth and the nature of ideas, but it doesn't always give us practical methods of living in the world. Maybe it helps us heighten our understanding of certain things, and maybe it can affect our approach to certain things, but as a codified system of sort of dealing with life and knowledge, I don't always find it to be particularly helpful. So he has this conversation with Sam Harris where basically his statement on truth is that nothing that harms us or kills us or is bad for us can be true. And that is simply, that's, to me, as a human being living in the world, that sounds simply absurd. To people who operate in a more fact-based or, way of knowing based, scientific way of knowing based ideas of truth, that sounds kind of crazy. And Sam Harris presented many, many good arguments for why, for the sort of contradictions in that way of approaching the world. And basically Jordan Peterson just continued to change his definition until, or not really change his definition, but change whatever Sam was saying, Sam Harris was saying, to say, well, that's not true. It can be this, it can be that, it can be sort of all these synonyms for truth and fact and whatever, but it's still not true, because in his mind, truth is this one really, really specific thing. So that's really something important to keep in mind, listening to him talk and listening to him discuss anything about truth, because that's not the way most of us go around applying truth to our daily lives. So I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's definitely different, and it's definitely rooted in philosophy, more so than, the way, than what most of us are doing. I think it's a very important thing to consider when you think about his arguments and his discussions. So, another important thing to know about Jordan Peterson is he does not believe happiness is a good goal. He doesn't. He doesn't think it's a good thing that you should strive for. He thinks people who are striving for happiness are delusional and crazy, basically. He thinks that they're, or shallow, or he thinks that basically the nature of human existence is suffering and pain. And when he says things like that, I'm like, who hurt you? Dude, who hurt you? He says things like, oh, you could strive for happiness, but what if you got cancer? Then fuck you. I'm like, well, what? But what's more powerful than somebody diagnosed with a terminal illness who is able to find happiness even after that diagnosis, who's able to find joy in their lives in spite of that? What kind of person, you have a choice as to what you value in your life. You have a choice to what you see in your life. If you look around, of course you're going to see suffering. Of course you're going to see horrors, you're going to see atrocities, you're going to see misery all the time. And that's what's exposed to us a lot. And I do agree that there's a great human tendency to latch onto that and to dig into that. Why? Honestly, because I think suffering is easier than happiness. I think it's a much easier, which is funny, because his whole argument is we should suffer in these ways, and we should face these challenges because they're hard and they give us fulfillment. And I think looking for happiness and finding happiness is actually far more difficult than suffering. Suffering is easy. We do that all the time. We do that naturally. Where it's very self-honoring to just live and sit in our suffering all the time. Striving for happiness, man, if when you are hit with suffering, when you are hit with misery, to be able to find gratitude, happiness, that's the blessing. I mean, that's a blessing. I don't mean it's religiously at all, but I mean, that's a beautiful thing. You want to look around the world and look for the good things, for people helping people, for people doing selfless acts, for miracles, for great acts of kindness, things like that. You'll find those too. They're out there. They're perhaps as plentiful and bountiful as the stories of suffering. It's what you look for and how you choose to see it, So that's, like, obviously I'm doing life wrong, because, look, I suffer. I mean, I don't, suffer, oh my God, my life is so hard, I'm so oppressed. But look, I don't make a lot of money. I struggle. I have to, cut out things. I don't have any excess spending for pleasure in my life. I do the bare minimum. And I'm grinding on YouTube for you guys. No, because because I believe that, and it's not because I believe that it'll make me happy. I mean, I think it will, hopefully, and it does make me happy. And that's the whole thing. I'm doing this because it's what I want to do, and it is challenging. I'm not trying to do this because it's easy. I'm doing this because it's what speaks to me. It's what I feel like, how I feel like I'm contributing, to the world in some way, in some small way. And that's fulfilling for me. And the fact that I get to do that, and then I get to post this video, and I get to watch people view it, I get to watch people like it, I get to see your response and your feedback, I get people telling me incredible things sometimes. Yeah, I get people hating on me, I get people telling me shitty things and awful things, but I also get people telling me that I've been a positive factor in their life, and that the fact that I get to do this, that does make me happy. So obviously, I'm sorry, Jordan, I'm doing it wrong, because I have plenty of reasons to suffer and sit in my suffering and deal with that suffering. I'm not, the world's most successful, wonderful person. I'm not making $80,000 on Patreon every month, like you are, hint, hint, wink, wink, patrons. No, I'm kidding. But I'm happy. I am happy. God, I must, maybe, and that's according to Jordan Peterson, I should look for some greater challenge, because obviously I am not challenging myself enough in my life if I'm happy. And that's how he talks about having children. Why not be child-free and happy? There's a video out there where he talks about why not be child-free and happy? Well, because then you're unfulfilled, because then you're not rising to the challenge in life. You need to tackle these challenges and rise to these great challenges in your existence. Why can't you do that? Why can't you have both? And he can test, well, people with children aren't happy. And maybe that's true. And yes, there's an element, and that's the whole thing. Happiness is not, I think he defines happiness as this shallow, fleeting thing of I feel this wonderful amount of joy. Happiness is not oh, I'm happy right now, because I'm smiling, because this thing made me laugh, because this thing made me, because I went on a drive with my friends last night. That's not happiness. Happiness is so much deeper than that, and you can be stressed, and you can be strung out, and you can be even miserable and still be happy. You can be you can suffer and be happy. You know, I would hope that raising children is a joy, you know, in many, many ways. I would hope that the love that they bring into your life is a joy and does sometimes make you happy, because I don't think that I don't think that you should be like, well, I'm going to have children now and suffer myself to a life of misery forever and ever and ever. I mean, and he does, and he talks about that. He's another video where he talks about, like, once you're a parent, your needs don't matter. It's all about the children. Your happiness, your well-being, fuck that. That's all secondary to your children's needs. And on one hand, yes. On one hand, absolutely yes. Your parents should put you first. And if they didn't do that for you, I'm sorry. Mine did, and it was wonderful. They absolutely did. My parents never took a vacation by themselves once we were born. You know, they weren't planning these great extravagant trips all over the place, because they wanted to make sure they had money so that we could go to the colleges we wanted to go to, so that we could participate in the activities that we wanted to do, so we could go to summer camps, so we could do things like that. That's where all their money went, right? To taking care of us. That's where their free time went, to taking care of us, right? And that's great. That's wonderful. And I appreciate it. And I think I do think that parents should, to a very heavy extent, put things aside for them, put their children's needs first. Now, that doesn't mean that they should just that they stop being people and they stop having needs, and that their happiness and well-being stops being important. And that's the thing. When you're not a healthy person, you can't be there for your kids the way they need you to be. So no, if you put everything aside, if you put your happiness aside and say, my happiness and well-being is not important because everything's about my children, you're not going to raise your children right. You're not. This is the whole paradox I don't understand about Jordan Peterson. The truth, nothing that is true harms us. Nothing that harms us is true, right? Nothing that makes us suffer is true. But life is not about happiness. Life is about suffering. I don't understand that. I don't understand how you could believe those two things. If someone can explain that to me, that would be excellent, because those two seem inherently contradictory. If nothing that harms us is true, but life is all about suffering, that sounds like a paradox to me. So that's a thing. Anyway, so that's, I don't always agree with him on child rearing. I don't always agree with him, and actually it's interesting because he talks a lot about father figures. He talks a lot about masculinity and traditional masculinity, and from what I understand, he wrote this book that really does value heavily sort of a traditional male masculine role. And there is nothing wrong with that. And actually, I think that his book is a great thing in some ways, because that this, like, hey, because Jordan, and he does, like, he's inherently, he's a person who loves people, you know, in that he wants people to be happy. He wants people to, which is, like, again, weird, because, like, he wants to do no harm, you know, to people. So he's again, happiness is not the point, suffering is the point, yet he's all about live your life and act in a certain way to be kind to others, to bring joy to others, to bring happiness to others. Again, I don't quite understand that. Obviously, it makes sense that he's not, you know, supporting people causing human suffering, but it just, again, like, if it's not the point for anyone to be happy, why should I go out of my way to make people happy, you know? Whatever. But my point is, his basic fundamental ideas on how to live as a person are about being a good person. And I don't disagree with a lot of those fundamentally. And I don't disagree with giving a codified set of, here, young men, here's how to be a good person, to young, traditionally masculine men. I think that's actually a good thing. Now, the problem that I have with that, though, is he's so stuck in these ideals of what is a traditional thing. And he's very traditional. He's very traditional. He is not able, that's what I mean when I say he's not able to step outside of himself and consider anything, you know, outside of himself. He was clearly raised with traditional values. He had a very, very strong father figure in his life that he respected, and he draws all that information off of that. And I think as a psychologist, you do that even more so. You draw from your experience, and as a psychologist, you do need a codified set of, this is the way the world is and the way the world works, because you need to be able to draw on that to help the people that you're working with, and that's fine. No issues there, but the problem then becomes you are not able then, again, like I said, to consider other potentialities and other viewpoints. So he is very, very into this traditional masculine role, and that begs the question is, what does he think a traditional feminine role is? And I don't know if he's talked about this in as great detail. What is traditional femininity? I'm not traditionally feminine. I'm not a traditional feminine woman. I don't live a traditionally feminine woman life. You know, is that wrong in his eyes? Should I be doing more to fill the gender stereotype? You know, and that to me is just like, that doesn't serve me. And he's very much about that. What serves, you know, your existence. buying into the gender stereotype of being a girly girl does not serve me. It does not. Why should I do it? Why should I do it? Anyway, so again, the strong father figure. So he's very against single motherhood. He thinks that single parent households are inherently flawed. And look, I'm not going to say that it's not harder to be a single parent. I think it absolutely is. I think that there are a lot more pitfalls, there are a lot more challenges, and there are a lot more difficulties that facing that. And some of those, yes, are in your relationship with your children and how you have to balance that. Now, one of the things he says that I fundamentally disagree with is he says, well, typically the mother is the merciful one and the father is the disciplinarian. That's sort of his take. Obviously, that was the case for him. That was more the case for me. Plenty of my friends growing up was the opposite. A relative of mine is a psychologist who works, has worked, he's retired, but he spent his career working with adolescents, with younger people. And in his experience, just as many, if not more, people had mothers who were the disciplinarian, mothers who were the strict ones, and fathers who were the more laid-back, lenient ones. I've seen this. I'm a coach. I coach in athletics. In athletics, let me tell you, in fencing especially, the mother... so often, I mean, you hear the phrase tiger mom, you hear the phrase soccer mom, you hear the phrase like sports parents, right? That's the mother so much of the time. I have so much more problems with mothers that are the aggressive ones, that are the ones pushing their children. When I coach, I've had unhealthy mothers who put unhealthy amounts of pressure and stress on their children. I've seen, and it's not always unhealthy too. I mean, there are mothers who are the ones who push the children, and the fathers just the more laid back ones. My student who's competing here this week, yay! Definitely, her mom is wears the pants in that relationship. And her dad's great, and her dad is strong and firm and clearly has opinions of his own and clearly, has a big say in the household and whatnot. But you really get the sense that mom's also the one, in addition to working her job, that's carting the kids around most of the time. Mom is the one who's hard on the kids, who's really tough on them, and dad's the one who's a little bit softer. That's, again, it happens all in it. There's no, I would like to see if there is a statistic on whether they're, on whether which parent is stricter. Has anyone done a statistically significant survey on this idea? Because it seems to me that Jordan Peterson is drawing off, once again, his own experiences and not actually considering that other people have had different experiences and that doesn't always exist. So his argument then is that you don't have a disciplinarian if you don't have a father figure in your life, or your odds are you don't, or that mother now has to work to be both of those things, and that's just really hard for her. Well, the reality is both of your parents should be, and yes, it's a difficult tightrope to walk, but both of your parents should be filling both of those roles at times. Your mother can't say yes to you all the time. Sometimes dad's going to be, away on a business trip or something like that, There always has to be a balance in both parents, and father can't just be coming down on you all the time and never showing you compassion or emotion. I don't think that's healthy either. I think that's why you have a lot of emotionally stilted men, because their fathers never showed them that. And my father, in addition to being the one who drove us, being the one who sat me down with a 97% on a math test when I was 9 and said, hey, let's see where you lost the 3 points, was also the one who came into my room every single night, gave me a kiss, and told me how much he loved his smart, pretty little girl. Until I, got to a point where he called me his smart, pretty big girl, and he still calls me that. I love my dad. And again, I'm coming here from a perspective. I have two loving, wonderful, healthy, doting parents, but I don't think that's the only. Back to the point. So yes, my parents were able to find that balance. My mom was strict sometimes too. My mom said no. My mom forbade us from going places and doing certain things if she thought it wasn't good for us. They both filled both of those roles, and I think parents should. So when you have one parent, it's harder, no doubt. It's much harder because they always have to be both of those things, and they have to be constantly flipping back and forth, and they have to go a little more to the extreme of each one of them because they don't have someone to rely on to get that balance. But I don't think it's impossible. I mean, in life, we can have different relationships with different people at different times. I was a fencing coach in college for my college team, and my team were my friends. We walked into the gym, I was their coach, and we had a different relationship, a completely different relationship. Then we went back to my room and kicked back and had a few drinks. Completely different relationship. We do that in life. It's not easy, it is hard, and it's not an innate behavior, I don't think, but we are capable as human beings to do that, to walk those lines and do that. We were fucking thinking creatures. Not again, back to the happiness thing. Is if our purpose is just to survive and procreate, what makes us different than animals? I don't think that it's great that we're so much that we are different in so many ways, because we don't respect the world around us, we don't respect our environments. But the fact is we have this ability to think about the world in a certain way that other creatures don't seem to think about it. So why not strive for something higher? Why not strive for something bigger? Why not strive for that happiness and that satisfaction? Why not challenge yourselves to be a single mom if that's what you want to be? So back to that point, another thing he says against it is, well, single moms have unhealthy relationships with their children, often, or single parents, and oftentimes it's, Freudian and sexual. Show me the statistics for that one, buddy. Because obviously a single parent, they probably, especially a single parent with one child, I'm sure it's very easy to develop an unhealthy closeness in that situation, because there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of worry, there's a lot of concern that goes into parenting, and there's a lot of that attachment that happens as a result of it. So sure, that happens. And sometimes it's unhealthy, but sexual, you're gonna have to show me the statistics on that one, because I'm not buying that one straight off. I'm not a Freudian. I don't really dive into that stuff anyway. So whatever. And so Jordan Peterson likes to say that in most cases, in almost every case, he says, I think he actually said in every case, he probably doesn't really mean that. I hope he doesn't really mean that. It's better to have two parents. Sorry guys, my phone fell down, but we're back now. So where were we? Jordan Peterson, it's better to have two parents than one, even if the two parents aren't the best parents. And that to me is just totally whacked. If you're a well-off single mother, father, whoever, and you have the means to take care of your children, and you do it in a healthy, positive way, that to me, it's got to be healthier. It's got to be better than than two drug-addicted parents who beat you. It just seems obvious to me. That just seems logical. So I don't know. I don't know. That just. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he agrees. Maybe he doesn't. I really don't know, because he said in every case. But I hope he doesn't mean that, because I just think that to me is obvious. I don't think a healthy child's going to come out of that kind of situation. I don't think a healthier child is going to come out of that situation than a situation with a loving, healthy, positive, parent, single parent. That's just nuts to me. And again, so Jordan Peterson, back to his why be child free and happy. He talks about all that and you shouldn't be child-free and happy. Okay, well, what if you're a single woman and you're in a position where you could totally support a kid or children, but you don't have a husband, and you for whatever reason have not found somebody to marry you, and perhaps, for whatever reason don't want to, have had bad experiences, maybe have had some issues with it, or just aren't in a place where that makes sense for you. So you should miss out on what Jordan Peterson thinks is this highest version of being a human, simply because you couldn't find a husband? That seems a little backwards. Or even vice versa, you couldn't find a wife. Guy could get married, but you could totally adopt a child, or get a surrogate, and raise a child. And he wants to, because life is a beautiful thing, and he wants to have that life and that meaning and that suffering, and his life would be empty without it. Why? Yes, it is harder to be a single parent, and there are a lot of statistics out there regarding the failings, the certain issues that children have as a result of single parenthood. That there are certain issues, yes, that children are much more likely to have as a result of single parents. Okay, these statistics do not discriminate based on the single parent household. It's not we took a sample statistic of all the single parents who chose to be single parents in this income bracket with these things available to them, and blah, 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 and the same percentage for those children as for, oops, I'm 16 and got knocked up and the guy didn't want to marry me. So, and some of those people would even identify as choosing to be parents. Oh yeah, I wanted to have this baby or whatever. Maybe, and so in some cases also, I don't know how those statistics work. If it's you thought the father was going to stick around and he didn't. You planned to have this child with a man and have him be in the picture, and he wasn't. So I you really gotta consider where this material is coming from. Single parent households sometimes are not single by choice. They're not. It's not like the person was I would love to be a single parent. I think that's still a fairly rare thing. I would imagine that someone's you know what I really want to do? I want to raise a kid on my own, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot easier to have someone else there helping out with you. But. So you have to be aware of that. So some of these issues these children are having are not just solely because they had a single parent, but because they had a single parent in a situation that wasn't ideal for child rearing. Period. End of story. Right? And now, so he talks about not having male role models, and okay, so if you don't have a father figure in your life, you're gonna go find it in sports, and that's not always healthy because it's competitive and this and that and whatever. Look, you can have a positive male role models in your life that aren't your father, and it's not always gonna be the same, and it's not gonna substitute, but that doesn't mean you can't have positive male role models that don't help you learn the same lessons that a father helps you learn. Right? It's fact, there. And there's nothing to say that just because you have a single mother, you weren't successful. I would just like to go really quickly, just five little names. There's tons of people out there who've lived great, happy, healthy, successful lives with single parents. And specifically, I want to talk about a few athletes, a few male athletes. These are male athletes, right? So male athletes, like the most macho, manly, masculine thing you could get into, right? And these guys, single mothers: Lance Armstrong, Larry Bird, Jackie Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal, LeBron James. And if you talk to these guys, ask them what they learned from their moms. Ask them what strength they got from their moms. You can ask if they missed having a father figure. They probably did. But ask them who gave them the strength, the power, the discipline to earn their place in the world. In some cases, in history. Asked them who gave them that strength. I bet you they say it's their mama. I will bet you money that they say it's their mama. So, and that's why I'm always very, and that's why I'm very grateful that I've taken statistics classes and learned things about this, because statistics, and this is the thing, anytime someone quotes a statistic at you, question it. Question the source, question the study, question the sample size, question the validity of that study, question the other factors that go into it, right? A statistic alone tells you very little unless you actually know the circumstances around it. And remember, guys, 90% of statistics are made up on the spot. So that's what I have to say about Jordan Peterson. I feel like he's not able to consider realities that don't look like his. And I think that's very sad for him, because the life is changing. God damn this fucking phone. Life is changing. The world is changing. People are changing. Our understandings of what is good and correct is changing. And when I listen to Jordan Peterson talk, what I hear, sorry, see if I can fix the light here. What I hear is somebody who is just not willing to change with it. And that's kind of sad for me. But let me know what you guys think. If you haven't listened to him talk, guys, do it. Don't just take my word for it. Form your own opinions. Listen to what he has to say, and don't just accept what he has to say either. Question it. Oh, my phone is so not cooperating with me today. Anyway, like I said, question everything. Don't just accept what anybody tells you. Don't accept what mainstream media tells you. Don't accept what random conspiracy sites on the internet tell you. Don't accept what any speakers tell you just because they say it. Ask questions. Formulate your own opinions. Do research. Fact check. Have a voice. Put your opinion out there and allow it to be challenged. And when it's challenged, think about it. Think about why it was challenged. Think about whether or not your assumptions are flawed. Think about whether or not your argument is sound. It's uncomfortable, but it's not as hard as you would think, and it makes the world a better place. When we can do that, when we don't just write each other off because we disagree, and that's the thing, right? I just made a long-ass video talking about a fundamental thing that I disagree with about Jordan Peterson, in a way that I think he's wrong, in a way that I think his approach to the world is wrong. Is that going to stop me from listening to him talk and have conversations with people and have dialogues and weigh in on important issues? It's not. It's not. I can respect and value his opinion and not like everything he says, but not hate him for it, and not disagree with him as a human being, or disagree with everything he says on principle just because he says it. And that's the case with all these people out there. Fucking Ben Shapiro says some things that rub me the wrong way. Like, I would, that if he said it to my face, I'd punch him, And he says other things, I'll watch an entire video and laugh my ass off and be like, yes, thank you, 100%. And that is the beautiful thing about this world. We do not have to agree on everything all the time. There aren't two ways to do things. It's not just this and that, and if you're not this, you're that, and if you're not this, you're evil. That's not how the fucking world works, guys. So ask questions, challenge assumptions. All right? Just because Jordan Peterson is much more well-known than I am and makes a lot more money than I do, that doesn't mean I can't sit here and spend way too much of my time challenging his assumptions. So thanks for that. Thank you, Becky. Becky, in case you haven't figured it out, is a single mom and doing a fantastic job of it. So fuck you, Jordan Peterson. on that front. And if you guys want to make suggestions for my Patreon, join the community and tell me what to say, and I'll say it like your happy little puppet. Well, I'll always say what I really think about it, but you can always steer me in the direction. Anyway, live streaming is happening for the next several days, so be there or don't, but you should be there. So bye!